What if the greatest threat to your future isn't failure, but the outdated version of you you're still protecting? Staying comfortable feels safe, but it's a slow, invisible death. Every excuse, every distraction, every pattern you refuse to confront is a chain keeping you trapped. The brutal truth? You either evolve or you slowly disappear into mediocrity. Kill the old you, burn the fallback plans, build the next version. Repeat relentlessly, because the clock isn't pausing for anyone. In a few moments, I'll teach you how to force yourself to outgrow the old you and never look back again. The awakening moment. There comes a point in every person's life when the brutal truth becomes impossible to ignore. Staying the same is a choice. It's not fate. It's not bad luck. It's not the fault of circumstances, parents, the economy, or anyone else. It's a decision, whether conscious or unconscious, to remain where you are. And this truth is often uncomfortable. But discomfort is where growth begins. Most people are seduced by comfort. Familiar routines, predictable patterns, and the safety of the known provide a false sense of security. But the harsh reality is this: comfort is a slow death. It creeps in silently, lulling you into believing that good enough is acceptable. You stop stretching, stop striving, and settle into a version of yourself that feels safe but is far from your potential. Comfort disguises itself as peace, but underneath it's stagnation. The longer you stay where you are, the harder it becomes to move. Days become weeks, weeks become years. Before you know it, you're watching others live the life you once dreamed of, wondering why it feels like time passed you by. This is the trap. Life doesn't wait. The world doesn't pause for anyone. You either evolve or you stay trapped. There is no middle ground. Growth is not optional if you desire fulfillment, purpose, or success. The pain of change is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts a lifetime. The awakening moment comes when you finally understand that no one is coming to save you. No mentor, no friend, no motivational quote can drag you out of the mental prison you've built unless you choose to break free yourself. This realization is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it places full responsibility on your shoulders. Liberating because it means you hold the power to change everything. Look around at your life. Your habits, your relationships, your finances, your health. Every part of it reflects a series of choices you've made or refused to make. If you're not where you want to be, it's not because you're incapable. It's because on some level, staying the same felt safer than risking the discomfort of growth. But ask yourself this: is the illusion of safety worth the reality of mediocrity? Growth is messy, it's uncomfortable, it demands sacrifice of time, energy, ego, and sometimes relationship. But it's also where life truly begins. The person you want to become is on the other side of everything you fear, and once you awaken to this, it becomes impossible to unsee. You start to notice the small ways you've kept yourself small. You begin to recognize that fear is not a wall, but a doorway. This is your moment. You can either continue numbing yourself with distractions, excuses, and temporary comforts, or you can step into the fire of transformation. One path leads to a life of what if. The other leads to a life where you become everything you were meant to be. The choice is yours. It always has been. Look in the mirror brutally. There is a moment in every journey of transformation when you are forced to do something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You have to stand in front of the mirror, not the physical one, but the internal one, and look at yourself with brutal, unfiltered honesty. No sugarcoating, no justifications, no pretending that things are better than they are. This is the moment where radical self-honesty becomes not just a concept, but a necessity. Most people live behind layers of stories they've told themselves for years, stories that explain why they're stuck, why they haven't succeeded, or why life feels heavier than it should. They blame circumstances, other people, bad luck, or even the past. But the truth is far simpler and far more confronting. You are where you are because of you. The patterns you've allowed, the excuses you've accepted, and the habits you've repeated are the architects of your current reality. It's easy to say you want change. It's easy to dream about a better version of your life. But change doesn't happen in fantasies. It begins with the courage to sit with yourself and ask the hardest questions. Where am I lying to myself? What patterns am I repeating that keep sabotaging my progress? What excuses do I run to every time things get uncomfortable? This kind of introspection isn't comfortable, but it is the price of transformation. When you start looking closely, you begin to see the invisible chains you've placed around yourself. Maybe it's the story that you're not good enough or not ready. Maybe it's the habit of procrastinating every time fear shows up, or the tendency to surround yourself with people who validate your comfort rather than challenge your growth. These aren't coincidences, they are choices. Sometimes unconscious, sometimes deliberate, but choices nonetheless. The most dangerous lies are the ones you tell yourself, the ones that whisper, "It's not that bad," or "I'll start tomorrow," or "This is just who I am." These lies create an illusion of safety while slowly suffocating your potential. The longer you avoid confronting them, the deeper they root themselves in your identity. But here's the truth. You cannot change what you refuse to confront. Ignoring the problem doesn't make it disappear, it only makes it stronger. Every time you turn away from the mirror, the gap between who you are and who you could be widens. And the only way to close that gap is to face yourself fully, with no filters and no escape routes. Looking in the mirror brutally doesn't mean tearing yourself down or drowning in guilt. It means owning your reality completely. It means recognizing that while you may not be responsible for everything that happened to you, you are fully responsible for what you do next. It's about choosing to be the person who stops the cycle rather than continues it. This is the starting line, not the fake starting line where you make promises to change but do nothing. The real one, the one where change begins the moment you finally decide to tell yourself the truth, the prison of familiarity. There's a strange paradox about the human mind. It craves safety, predictability, and familiarity, even when what's familiar is slowly destroying it. The mind becomes addicted to patterns, whether they serve us or sabotage us. This is the prison of familiarity. It's invisible, it's comfortable, and it's the very thing that keeps most people stuck in lives far smaller than the ones they're capable of living. What's familiar feels safe, but safe doesn't always mean good. People stay in jobs that drain their souls, relationships that dim their light, and routines that suffocate their growth. Not because they don't know it's damaging, but because it's what they know. The mind would rather deal with predictable pain than risk the uncertainty of change. It convinces you that the discomfort you already understand is better than the unknown discomfort that might come with transfer. This is why so many cling tightly to their limitations. They've worn these limitations like armor for so long that they start mistaking them for their identity. I'm just not disciplined. I've never been good with money. I'm not the type of person who can change. These aren't facts. They're stories, reinforced by years of repetition, backed by the seductive comfort of the familiar. To challenge these beliefs feels threatening because on a subconscious level, it means stepping away from the version of yourself you've always known. The mind resists this. It fights for the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. This is why people return to bad habits the moment life feels uncertain. This is why someone can leave a toxic relationship only to find themselves back in another one that feels eerily similar. It's not because they enjoy suffering, it's because suffering, when familiar, feels safer than stepping into the unknown. But here lies the great danger. When comfort becomes the ultimate goal, growth becomes the casualty. You cannot have both. Growth demands discomfort. It demands stretching beyond what you know, beyond what's easy. It asks you to abandon the version of yourself that fits neatly within the confines of your past. And that's terrifying for everyone. Choosing familiarity over growth is the slowest form of self-betrayal. You trade the possibility of who you could become for the fleeting relief of not having to change today. But the price is steep. Years slip by, potential is wasted. Dreams become distant memories you stop believing in, not because they were impossible, but because comfort convinced you to stop trying. Escaping the prison of familiarity isn't about a single massive leap. It's about recognizing when you're choosing the known over the necessary. It's about noticing the moments when your mind whispers, "Stay here, it's safer," and having the courage to respond, "Safe isn't good enough anymore," because the life you're capable of, the life that's waiting on the other side of fear, can never be built inside the walls of comfort. The only question that remains is simple. Will you choose the familiar cage or the freedom of growth? Declare war on the old you? There comes a point when personal growth stops being something you merely talk about, wish for, or casually pursue. It becomes a fight, a deliberate, aggressive rebellion against every version of yourself that has ever settled, procrastinated, avoided, or made excuses. Growth is not passive. It never has been. It is an act of war against the old self, against the patterns that have kept you small, against the comfortable lies that whisper, "This is just who you are." People like to romanticize growth. They frame it as something soft, gentle, or inspirational. But anyone who is truly transformed knows the truth is far messier and far more violent than that. Growth requires you to confront the parts of yourself that you've spent years protecting. The laziness disguised as rest, the fear disguised as caution, the self-doubt dressed up as humility. You don't outgrow these things by accident. You destroy them systematically, intentionally, and relentlessly. To change your life, you must first declare that the old version of you is no longer welcome. The you that procrastinates until tomorrow, the you that breaks promises to yourself, the you that lowers standards to avoid disappointment. That version has to die for your future self to breathe. And no one else can do this for you. No mentor, no book, no motivational speech. This is your war. You either pick up the sword or you stay exactly where you are. A mindset of transformation is not polite. It doesn't negotiate with mediocrity. It doesn't ask for permission. It rejects stagnation like the plague because it understands that to stay the same is to betray the future self that's waiting. Every day you wake up, you are faced with a choice. Defend the identity you've always had, or fight for the identity you've never met but desperately want to become. This fight isn't about perfection. It's about refusal. Refusal to keep living beneath your potential. Refusal to let fear dictate your choices. Refusal to let another day pass under the illusion that you'll start tomorrow. There is no tomorrow for the old you. That version is living on borrowed time the moment you decide you've had enough. Understand this: your future self is not some distant fantasy. It's a very real version of you that's waiting, watching, and depending on the decisions you make right now. That future you demands that you fight. Fight the comfort, fight the doubt, fight the old programming that wants to pull you back every time you try to rise. This isn't a one-time declaration. It's a daily battle. Some days you will win, some days you will falter, but the war is won by those who refuse to lay down their weapons. Those who understand that growth isn't something that happens to you, it's something you force into existence by being relentless, ruthless, and absolutely unwilling to accept anything less than transformation. The old you has had enough time. It's over. It's done. Declare war. Outgrowing comfort zones. The comfort zone is a liar. It pretends to be a sanctuary, a place of safety, familiarity, and ease, but in truth, it's a cage. Not one made of steel or stone, but of invisible bars constructed from fear, routine, and the seductive pull of what's known. You don't notice the bars at first. They're subtle, disguised as habits that feel harmless. The same routines, the same conversations, the same thoughts that quietly whisper, "Stay here, it's safer here." But safety comes with a cost. The cost is stagnation. The cost is potential left unexplored. The cost is waking up one day realizing that comfort quietly became confinement. Nothing new grows in the comfort zone, only the illusion of stability. Growth, evolution, reinvention, none of these things live inside those boundaries. They wait for you just beyond the line where comfort ends and discomfort begins. Every meaningful version of your growth starts the same way, by stepping directly into discomfort. Not around it, not waiting for it to disappear, straight into it. Discomfort is not a signal that something's wrong. It's the first undeniable sign that you're expanding beyond who you've been. It's the friction between the current version of yourself and the next one that's trying to be born. Most people misunderstand discomfort. They mistake it for danger, failure, or weakness. But discomfort is none of those things. It is data. It's proof. Proof that you are stretching into spaces you've never been. Proof that your brain is rewiring, that new skills are forming, that old identities are cracking under the pressure of growth. If you aren't uncomfortable, you aren't changing. It's that simple. Think back to any point in your life when you truly leveled up, whether it was learning a new skill, taking a risk, walking away from something toxic, or choosing discipline over indulgence. None of those moments were comfortable. They were laced with fear, doubt, and the ache of uncertainty. And yet, looking back, they were the moments that built you. Every transformation has discomfort as its currency. But here's the mistake people make. They believe that the goal is to escape discomfort, that if they work hard enough or succeed fast enough, they'll earn the right to return to ease. But growth doesn't work like that. Each comfort zone you outgrow simply gives way to a new one, slightly larger, but governed by the same rule. The next level of you lives just beyond it. The more you lean into discomfort, the more you realize it doesn't break you, it remakes you. What once felt terrifying becomes your new normal, and then the process repeats. Growth isn't a single event, it's a lifelong commitment to choosing the edge over the center, expansion over retreat, and potential over protection. Outgrowing comfort zones isn't just a phase, it's a mindset. a relentless refusal to let comfort become a coffin, a deep understanding that discomfort isn't the enemy. It's the clearest sign you're exactly where you need to be to become who you were always meant to become. Furthermore, burn the escape routes. There's a dangerous habit that most people adopt without realizing it. The habit of leaving escape routes open, quiet little back doors in their minds, mental exits, labeled. If this gets too hard, I'll quit, or if it doesn't work out, I'll just fall back on plan B. At first glance, it feels responsible, even smart. Who wouldn't want a safety net? Who wouldn't want a backup plan just in case things fall apart? But the brutal truth is this: leaving those escape routes open is the single fastest way to guarantee failure. When your mind knows there's an easy way out, it will always choose it the moment things get difficult. It doesn't matter how motivated you are at the beginning. Motivation is fleeting. The moment obstacles appear, the mind starts whispering, "Why suffer? You don't have to do this. You've got another option. Just go back to what's comfortable." And with that whisper, your commitment starts to crumble. This is why people so often fall back into old patterns. They tell themselves they're trying to change, but they keep one foot in their old life, just in case. They dip their toes into growth, but never jump fully in. They say they're serious about building something better, but their actions betray them. They keep the job they hate while trying to build the business. They hold on to toxic relationships while working on themselves. They keep the excuses on standby, like lifeboats, in case the ship of their transformation starts to rock. But growth does not reward the half-committed. The universe has a way of testing whether you mean what you say. And if your energy signals hesitation, doubt, or a willingness to retreat, the results you want will stay out of reach. You cannot negotiate with transformation. It demands something more brutal, more absolute. It demands that you burn the escape routes. This doesn't mean reckless leaps without thought or preparation. It means a decision so deep, so final, that going back is no longer an option. It's cutting the ties to every excuse you've ever leaned on. It's dismantling Plan B and throwing it into the fire. It's destroying the fallback options that exist only to cushion your failure, not your success. When there is no way back, the mind stops looking for exits and starts searching for solutions. You fight harder. You think differently. You show up with an intensity that only exists when you know failure isn't a detour. It's the end if you let it be. That's when breakthroughs happen. Not when you're playing safe, but when you've committed fully, recklessly, relentlessly. The moment you decide that there is no plan but the one you're building now is the moment everything shifts. The fear doesn't disappear, but it transforms. It becomes fuel instead of a cage. Suddenly, success isn't a wish, it's the only option left. There is a version of you on the other side of total commitment that you've never met, but you will. The day you finally light the match and burn every way back to the life you're leaving behind. Reinvent or remain the same life has a way of cornering you. At some stage, it becomes brutally clear. You either reinvent yourself or you remain the same. Reinvention isn't something you do when it's convenient. It isn't a side project or a motivational hobby. It's mandatory. It's the uncompromising demand of growth, the price of becoming the person you were always meant to be. Time doesn't pause. The world moves forward whether you're ready or not. Everything shifts. Your environment, your opportunities, your relationships, your challenges. Yet far too many cling to outdated versions of themselves, gripping old identities like life rafts, believing they'll keep them afloat. But what once felt like protection slowly turns into a weight that drags you down. What served you in one chapter becomes your limitation in the next. Letting go of who you've been is one of the most painful things you'll ever do. You've worn those beliefs, habits, and personas for so long that they feel like your very identity. The version of you that plays small to avoid disappointment. The version that accepts "this is just who I am" as a life sentence. These aren't truths, they're survival mechanisms, forged in fear, repeated out of habit. But survival isn't the same as living. Growth demands more. Reinvention begins the moment you stop defending your limitations and start dismantling them. It's the moment you decide that who you were yesterday has no right to dictate who you become tomorrow. It means surrendering, not in weakness, but with the strength to admit that the familiar version of yourself can't take you where you're destined to go. This is the crossroads. Not choosing is still a choice. If you resist change, if you insist on dragging your old self into new chapters, life will not wait. It will quietly pass you by. Your potential will wither. Your dreams will rot on the vine. You won't even notice it happening at first. The fading is slow. subtle, and merciless. One day you simply wake up a stranger to the life you could have had. Because the truth is unforgiving. You either evolve or you dissolve. There's no middle ground. You're either stepping into discomfort, into the fire of growth, or you're slowly decaying into irrelevance, swallowed by the comfort of the familiar. Reinvention isn't a single dramatic transformation. It's a relentless commitment to shedding what no longer fits, again and again, without apology. The people who rise, the ones you admire, the ones who seem untouchable, they aren't lucky. They are ruthless about this process. They understand that the cost of keeping the old self is the death of the new one. And so they choose, boldly, repeatedly, they choose to evolve, to outgrow, to rewrite. The question has never been whether you can reinvent yourself. The real question is whether you're willing to let the old version of you die so the next one can live. Destroy your old patterns. Your life in its current form is the sum of your patterns. Every habit, every routine, every unconscious behavior is a brick in the architecture of your identity. You are not what you say you want. You are what you repeatedly do. And if those habits are rooted in avoidance, procrastination, self-sabotage, or comfort, then no amount of wishing or wanting will change your reality. The truth is simple. Until you destroy your old patterns, you will never become anything more than a recycled version of who you've always been. Patterns are sneaky. They live in the background, running silently like software that hasn't been updated in years. They dictate how you wake up, how you think, how you speak to yourself, how you handle stress, and how you approach challenges. Some were installed by childhood experiences, some by culture, others by years of repetition. And unless you bring them into conscious awareness, they run your life without your permission. This is the first step, identification. You cannot change what you cannot see. Look ruthlessly at your day. Where do your actions betray your goals? Where do your habits serve the old limited version of yourself? The conversations you avoid, the workouts you skip, the meals you choose out of convenience, not intention. These are not random. They are patterns designed to protect your comfort, even at the cost of your growth. But awareness is not enough. Once you see the pattern, you have one job: attack it. Not negotiate with it, not rationalize it, not delay its destruction until tomorrow. You dismantle it. Because every time you allow it to stay, it grows stronger. The neural pathways in your brain get more deeply wired. The groove gets deeper. The identity tied to those habits gets reinforced. The science behind it is brutally clear. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It loves efficiency. Whatever you do often, it automates. Whether it serves you or sabotages you doesn't matter to the brain. It only cares about repetition, which means the strategy for change is equally simple. Interrupt the pattern and replace it with one that aligns with the future you. This is the demolition process. Every time you interrupt the autopilot response, whether that's choosing discipline over distraction, action over avoidance, or courage over fear, you're carving a new groove into your neural circuitry. Do it once, it's uncomfortable. Do it a dozen times, it's clumsy. Do it 100 times, it becomes your new normal. This is how identity shifts. Not through motivation, but through execution. Relentless, repetitive, uncompromising execution. Understand this: the old patterns will fight back. They will scream for survival. They'll disguise themselves as fatigue, as stress, as perfectly logical reasons to quit. But every time you resist, you weaken them. And every time you choose the pattern of your future self, you strengthen the person you are becoming. You are never stuck. You are simply repeating. The moment you decide to destroy your old patterns is the moment your future begins. Ruthless self-discipline, discipline, has been misunderstood for far too long. People mistake it for punishment, as if being disciplined means stripping joy from life, forcing suffering, or living under constant restriction. But discipline is none of those things. At its core, it is one of the highest forms of self-respect. It's the ability to show up for yourself over and over, whether you feel like it or not. It's looking in the mirror and saying, I am someone who does what they said they would do. Most people live in the fantasy that motivation will carry them, that if they just read the right quote or stumble upon the right burst of inspiration, they'll suddenly become consistent, focused, unstoppable. But motivation is a liar. It's unreliable. It arrives when conditions are perfect, when you're comfortable, rested, and excited, and vanishes the moment discomfort shows up. Waiting on motivation is waiting to lose. This is where discipline steps in. Ruthless, relentless, unflinching discipline. The kind that doesn't negotiate with your emotions, the kind that doesn't care if you're tired, uninspired, bored, or frustrated. Discipline is the internal contract that says, we don't miss. When the alarm goes off, you get up. When the work is scheduled, you do it. When the workout is on the calendar, it gets done. No drama, no excuses, no internal debate. The mind will resist. It will offer you every soft, logical reason to skip, delay, or quit. Just this once. You deserve a break. You're not feeling it today. But those voices are the voices of the amateur. The amateur only shows up when it feels good. The amateur is a slave to mood, to comfort, to circumstance. Their progress rises and falls with their emotional weather. The professional operates differently. The professional understands that feelings are irrelevant to the process. The professional doesn't wait for the perfect moment, they create it. They understand that discipline is the bridge between goals and results, between potential and reality. It's the unglamorous work done in the dark that no one applauds. It's choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. Not once, but every day. Discipline isn't just about grinding endlessly. It's about alignment. It's the conscious act of becoming someone worthy of the future you claim to want. When you operate with discipline, you're not punishing yourself. You're proving to yourself that your goals matter, that your word means something, that you are no longer at the mercy of laziness, distraction, or doubt. And here's the paradox. The more disciplined you become, the freer you are. Free from the guilt of unfinished promises. Free from the constant loop of starting and stopping. Free from the chaos of living reactively. Discipline builds confidence because it's evidence, tangible proof that you can trust yourself. The separation is simple but brutal. Amateurs wait to feel ready. Professionals act regardless. If you want to change your life, kill the fantasy of motivation. Replace it with the unshakable reality of ruthless self-discipline. Pain is your greatest teacher. Pain has a way of introducing itself without asking for permission. It shows up uninvited, in failure, in rejection, in disappointment, in the weight of unmet expectations. Most people spend their lives running from it, numbing it, avoiding it at all costs. But the truth, as uncomfortable as it is, remains the same. Pain is your greatest teacher. Growth and pain are twins. They arrive together. You cannot have one without the other. The illusion people hold on to is that transformation should feel good, that chasing a better life should be fueled by motivation, excitement, and clarity. But reality doesn't work that way. Growth is friction. It's the breakdown of the old, the unfamiliarity of the new, and the chaos that happens in between. And pain is the signal that this process is alive, that something inside you is shifting, breaking, stretching beyond its limits. Most people waste their pain. They label it as something bad, something to be suppressed, medicated, or ignored. But pain isn't the enemy. It's information. It's feedback. It's the sharp, unmistakable signal that the way you've been living is too small for where you need to go, that your habits, your beliefs, or your environment no longer fit the future you claim to want. The moment you stop resisting pain and start interpreting it, everything changes. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of shrinking from discomfort, you start leaning into it, knowing that on the other side is growth you couldn't reach any other way. Pain will teach you things that comfort never will. It will show you your weaknesses without mercy. It will expose your blind spots, your patterns of avoidance, the lies you tell yourself, and the excuses you cling to. It is the raw, unfiltered mirror that forces you to confront reality exactly as it is, not as you wish it to be. But here's the shift. The moment you stop seeing pain as punishment and start seeing it as a guide, it becomes fuel. Discomfort becomes data. That ache in your chest after a failure, proof that you care enough to hurt. That knot in your stomach when you confront your own laziness or procrastination, evidence that a higher version of yourself is trying to emerge. That sting of rejection, a redirection. A push toward where you truly belong. The most powerful people in the world aren't the ones who avoid pain. They're the ones who've learned to harness it. They've understood that pain isn't the end of the road, it's the beginning of a new one. They've trained themselves to interpret every setback, every breakdown, every discomfort as a signal to lean harder into growth, not retreat from it. Pain isn't a curse, it's a compass. It points directly to the areas that demand your attention, your healing, your effort. It strips away the unnecessary and sharpens what matters most. If you're feeling pain, it means you're in the arena. You're alive, you're growing, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Starve your weaknesses. Every day, in ways subtle and obvious, you are feeding something. You are either feeding the strongest, most disciplined, most powerful version of yourself, or you are feeding your weaknesses. Every time you indulge in distraction, procrastination, laziness, or instant gratification, you reinforce the patterns that belong to the old version of you, the one who settles, the one who breaks promises to themselves, the one who says, "I'll start tomorrow," but never does. And like anything that is fed regularly, those weaknesses grow stronger. They become louder. They start steering the wheel of your life without you even realizing it. Weakness is sneaky. It rarely presents itself as something destructive. Instead, it shows up as comfort, as a small compromise, as the voice that says, "You've worked hard today, you deserve to skip the gym," or "Start fresh on Monday." It disguises itself as rest, but it's not rest, it's avoidance. It's the slow erosion of your potential, one tiny indulgence at a time. The harsh truth is this: you cannot negotiate with your weaknesses. You cannot coddle them, compromise with them, or reason them into submission. You have to starve them, ruthlessly, intentionally, completely. Every indulgence is a choice, a vote for the person you no longer want to be. Every moment you give in to the easy option, you breathe life back into the very patterns you claim you're trying to escape. Comfort has always been the enemy of growth. The path of least resistance never leads to greatness. If it did, everyone would be extraordinary. But they're not, because most people are trapped in the endless cycle of feeding their comfort while wondering why nothing changes. They seek the dopamine hit, snacking, numbing, anything to avoid the discomfort of discipline, of doing the hard thing, of facing themselves. Starvation is the birthplace of transformation. When you deny your weaknesses their usual food, distraction, excuses, comfort, they begin to shrink, they lose power, and something else starts to grow in their place. Discipline, focus, resilience, hunger for more. You begin to notice that the pull toward laziness gets quieter. The temptation to procrastinate starts to lose its grip, and the identity of someone who quits begins to rot away. This process is not glamorous. It feels like war, because it is. Every day becomes a battlefield between the version of you who craves comfort and the version of you who craves freedom. And make no